Like a garden that never sleeps, even in the quietest hours of dawn, your brain pulses with an invisible symphony when you believe you are at rest. You close your eyes, let your muscles relax, allow your breathing to find its natural rhythm, but there inside, in the cathedral of your consciousness, something extraordinary happens, a dance of billions of neurons that never knows true rest. Imagine for a moment that you could observe your own mind like a naturalist observes a forest at night. There is no longer the noise of diurnal birds, no longer the frantic movement of animals searching for food, but the forest is not dead. It breathes differently. The roots converse through underground networks, the leaves process moonlight, fungi weave their invisible connections. This is how your brain is when you rest, a nocturnal forest in full activity, just at a frequency that conscious senses cannot capture. Have you ever wondered why some of your best insights come precisely when you are not looking for them? Why the solution to a problem emerges during a relaxing bath, or why a forgotten memory resurfaces when you contemplate the movement of clouds? The answer lies in this silent symphony, in this tireless work that your mind performs behind the scenes of consciousness. For decades, scientists believed that the resting brain was like a city after curfew, quiet, conserving energy, awaiting the next period of activity. But the development of technologies capable of peering through the skull revealed a surprising truth. The brain never truly rests. It simply changes repertoire, like a musician who stops playing jazz to explore a classical sonata. When you sit in a comfortable chair, close your eyes, and allow your mind to wander, you are actually activating what neuroscientists call the default mode network. It is as if there existed a secret orchestra in your head, which remains silent during the public performances of consciousness, but constantly rehearses during intermissions, refining melodies you did not even know existed. This network is composed of brain regions that work together like old friends in an intimate conversation. The posterior cingulate cortex, a region located in the back of the brain, functions as a discrete conductor, coordinating communication between different areas. The precuneus, situated at the top of the head, acts as an inner mirror, reflecting on the self and its experiences. The medial prefrontal cortex, right behind the forehead, is the philosopher of the mind, always pondering intentions, emotions, and social connections. These regions do not work in isolation. They form a network, like rivers that meet and separate, creating a complex delta of consciousness. When you are focused on a specific task, this network diminishes its activity, like actors who exit the stage to allow the protagonist to shine. But as soon as you relax, as soon as you allow attention to disperse, they return to the stage and begin their silent performance. What makes this discovery even more fascinating is that this network consumes an impressive amount of energy. Even at rest, your brain uses about 20% of all the energy your body produces. It is as if you had an entire city functioning inside your head, with its lights always on, its systems always operating, its conversations always happening. You might be thinking, but if the brain never rests, how is this possible? How do we manage to have the sensation of rest, of relief, of pause? The answer lies in the very nature of neural rest. It is like the difference between a river that runs rapidly between stones and another that flows smoothly across a plain. The water does not stop moving, but the quality of movement changes completely. When you lie in a hammock at the end of the afternoon, watching leaves dance against the golden sky, your mind is not empty. It is full, but in a completely different way from the fullness you experience during work or studies. It is as if your consciousness changed from a spotlight to candlelight, softer, more diffuse, more contemplative. During these moments, your brain enters a state that researchers describe as mind-wandering. But these technical words do not do justice to the beauty and complexity of what really happens. It is more as if your mind became a curious traveler, exploring internal landscapes that rarely have a chance to visit during the day. This wandering is not random. It follows patterns like a river that finds its way through different terrains. Sometimes your mind flows to the past, revisiting memories, reorganizing experiences, weaving connections that previously seemed impossible. Other times it projects into the future, imagining possibilities, rehearsing conversations, building scenarios. Neuroscientist Marcus Rachel from Washington University, was one of the first to perceive that the resting brain was not really at rest. In his neuroimaging studies, he observed that certain brain regions became more active when people were not engaged in any specific task. It was like discovering that the moon, apparently silent in the night sky, was actually singing a song that our ears could not hear. This discovery revolutionized our understanding of how the mind works. We realized that the brain is not like a computer that can be turned on and off, but rather like a living ecosystem that never stops pulsing, reorganizing, creating new connections. Even when you sleep, even when your consciousness dives into the silence of dreams, there are fundamental processes happening. The default mode network became one of the most important discoveries of modern neuroscience. It helped us understand that the mind has its own rhythms, its own needs, its own internal projects. It is as if we discovered that our house has secret rooms where important activities happen that we never imagined. During mind wandering, different brain regions begin to talk to each other in ways that do not happen during directed focus. It is as if they were musicians who, after playing a structured symphony, gathered to improvise jazz. There is no rigid score, but there is harmony, there is rhythm. There is a logic of its own that emerges from spontaneous interaction. The medial prefrontal cortex, a region associated with self-reflection and theory of mind, intensifies its activity. It is as if you had an internal philosopher who takes advantage of quiet moments to ponder existential questions: who you are, how you relate to others, what your place in the world is. These are not conscious and deliberate reflections, but rather a type of background processing, like a computer defragmenting its files while you are not looking. Simultaneously, the posterior cingulate cortex, a region involved in autobiographical consciousness, begins to weave connections between different memories and experiences. It is as if you had an invisible librarian organizing the books of your life, creating new categories, finding common themes, establishing relationships that previously went unnoticed. The hippocampus, guardian of your memories, also participates in this silent dance. During rest, it not only stores the day's experiences, but integrates them with older memories, creating a coherent narrative of your life. It is like a careful editor who reviews the manuscript of your autobiography, adjusting details, strengthening connections, preparing the text for future consultations. You can notice this process in your own experience. How many times, during a moment of relaxation, has an old memory emerged from nowhere, bringing with it a cascade of other remembrances? Or how many times has a recent experience suddenly made sense in a larger context, as if a puzzle piece finally found its place? The beauty of mind wandering lies in its apparent lack of purpose. Like a cat that walks without specific destination, your resting mind explores territories that focused consciousness rarely visits. But this apparent lack of direction hides a profound wisdom, an intelligence that operates at subtle and sophisticated levels. When you are absorbed in a task, your attention functions like a lens that focuses light on a specific point. This is useful, necessary, but also limiting. Mind wandering is like removing that lens and allowing light to spread, illuminating a broader landscape. Suddenly, you can see connections that were previously in shadow, patterns that previously went unnoticed. Scientists have discovered that mind wandering is intimately linked to creativity. When your mind wanders, it accesses a type of associative thinking that is fundamental to innovation. It is as if you had access to a library where books are not organized by subject, but by mysterious and poetic connections. A book about astronomy might be next to one about cooking, not by chance, but because both speak about transformation. This associative process is particularly evident during moments of creative insight. Archimedes had his famous discovery about the principle of buoyancy while taking a bath, a moment when his mind certainly was not focused on physics problems. Kekulé discovered the ring structure of benzene during a reverie in which he imagined a serpent biting its own tail. These moments are not accidents, but rather products of the wisdom of the resting mind. Modern neuroscience began to unravel the mechanisms behind these sudden insights. During mind wandering, there is a reduction in activity of the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, a region responsible for executive control and cognitive censorship. It is as if a rigorous guardian left his post, allowing apparently absurd or impossible ideas to enter consciousness. Simultaneously, there is an increase in communication between brain regions that normally do not talk much. The right temporal lobe, associated with processing metaphors and distant meanings, intensifies its activity. It is as if different neighborhoods of a city suddenly discovered secret tunnels that connect them, allowing unexpected cultural exchanges. You can observe this process in your own creative experience. When you are working intensely on a project, sometimes solutions seem to flee, like butterflies that fly away whenever you try to capture them. But when you step away, when you allow your mind to rest, solutions frequently arrive by themselves, as if they had been waiting patiently in a quiet corner of consciousness. Mind wandering also plays a crucial role in planning and mental simulation. During these moments of apparent inactivity, your mind is constantly rehearsing future scenarios, exploring possibilities, preparing for challenges that have not yet arrived. It is like a strategist who uses peacetime to study maps and plan routes. The medial prefrontal cortex, particularly active during wandering, is involved in the ability to imagine future situations and to put oneself in other people's shoes. It is as if you had an internal simulator that is constantly running virtual reality programs, testing different versions of yourself in different circumstances. This capacity for mental simulation is fundamental for adaptation and survival. It allows you to anticipate problems, plan solutions, imagine consequences. It is like having a mental laboratory where you can conduct experiments without risks, testing hypotheses about how the world works and how you can navigate through it. But mind wandering goes beyond practical utility. It is also a source of aesthetic pleasure, a form of internal art. During these moments, your mind creates narratives, composes mental music, paints pictures with words and images. It is as if you had a resident artist in your consciousness, always working, always creating, always finding beauty in unexpected places. Time acquires a different quality when your mind wanders. Minutes can seem like hours. Hours can pass like minutes. It is as if you entered a country where clocks function with their own logic, where time expands and contracts according to the internal richness of experience. This alteration in temporal perception is not mere illusion. It reflects real changes in brain functioning. During mind wandering, there is a reduction in activity of regions associated with temporal processing, such as the superior parietal cortex. It is as if the internal chronometers of the mind were temporarily turned off, allowing consciousness to float freely in the space of experience. You may have noticed this phenomenon during long train or plane trips when you look out the window and allow your mind to wander. The external world becomes a slow-motion movie, while the internal world accelerates, processing decades of memories in just a few minutes. It is as if you had access to a personal time machine, capable of traveling instantaneously between different moments of your life. This temporal flexibility is one of the most fascinating characteristics of the resting mind. It allows you to revisit conversations that happened years ago, imagine encounters that have not yet happened, and all this in the same mental space. It is like having an internal theater where different epochs of your life can perform simultaneously. Neuroscience discovered that this capacity is related to the activity of the posterior cingulate cortex, a region that functions as a central hub of the default mode network. This region has extensive connections with almost all other parts of the brain, allowing it to integrate information from different temporal domains. It is like a conductor who can coordinate musicians playing in different times, creating a harmony that transcends linearity. During mind wandering, your brain also becomes more sensitive to subtle patterns in the environment. You can notice details that would normally go unnoticed, the rhythm of someone's breathing nearby, the almost imperceptible change in late afternoon light, the distant sound of a bird you cannot identify. It is as if your senses were tuned to subtler frequencies of reality. This increased sensitivity is not accidental. It reflects a more open state of consciousness, less filtered by expectations and specific objectives. During directed focus, your brain functions like a projector that intensely illuminates a specific area, leaving the rest in shadow. During wandering, it functions more like diffuse light, gently illuminating a broader area. Psychologist Jerome Singer, a pioneer in the study of mind wandering, Observed that this state of consciousness is associated with greater receptivity to insights and inspirations. It is as if, by relaxing conscious control, you open communication channels with deeper parts of yourself. Ideas that were incubating in the unconscious can finally emerge, like plants that sprout after gentle rain. You can cultivate this receptivity by learning to value moments of apparent inactivity. In a culture that frequently equates productivity with value, it can be difficult to accept that some of the most important mental processes happen when you are not doing anything. But it is precisely in these moments that your mind has the opportunity to reorganize, to find new connections, to discover possibilities that remained hidden. Mind wandering is also intimately linked to emotional processing. During these moments, your mind not only organizes information but also integrates emotional experiences. It is as if you had an internal therapist working constantly, helping to process difficult events, to find meaning in confusing experiences, to integrate different aspects of your personality. Memory, during mental rest, behaves like a carefully cultivated garden. It is not a dead archive where information is simply stored, but a living ecosystem where remembrances interact, transform themselves, and create new forms of meaning. When you rest, your brain becomes a dedicated gardener, pruning some connections, strengthening others, planting seeds that will bloom in future insights. The hippocampus, that seahorse-shaped structure located in the heart of the limbic system, plays a fundamental role in this process. During rest, it not only consolidates memories from the day, but integrates them with previous experiences, creating a coherent narrative of your life. It is like a skilled editor who constantly reviews the manuscript of your autobiography, adjusting details, strengthening connections, preparing the text for future consultations. You can observe this process in your own experience. How many times, during a moment of relaxation, has an apparently forgotten memory resurfaced with surprising clarity? Or how many times has a recent experience suddenly made sense in a larger context, as if a puzzle piece finally found its place? These moments reveal the tireless work that your mind performs behind the scenes of consciousness. Memory consolidation during rest is not a passive process. It is a creative, reconstructive activity that can alter the very nature of remembrances. Each time a memory is accessed and reconsolidated, it can be slightly modified, influenced by the current context, by emotions of the moment, by new available information. It is as if your memories were paintings that you continue retouching throughout life, always adding new details, always adjusting colors and shadows. This flexibility of memory, although sometimes disturbing to our sense of objectivity, is actually a fundamental adaptive characteristic. It allows you to learn from past experiences, to reinterpret them in light of new knowledge, to find meanings that were previously hidden. It is like having a personal library where books continuously rewrite themselves, always becoming more relevant to your current situation. During rest, there is also a process of selective forgetting happening. It is not accidental forgetting, but an active filtering process that removes irrelevant information and preserves that which is significant. It is like a careful librarian who removes damaged or outdated books, maintaining only those that continue to be useful. This process is fundamental for mental efficiency, preventing your mind from becoming overloaded with irrelevant details. Neuroscientist Lynn Nadell proposed that this constant reorganization of memory during rest is essential for cognitive flexibility. It allows you to adapt to new situations, to find creative solutions to old problems, to see old experiences under new light. It is like having a mental kaleidoscope that is constantly creating new patterns from the same basic elements. The interaction between memory and emotion during rest is particularly fascinating. The amygdala, emotional center of the brain, maintains extensive connections with the hippocampus, influencing which memories are consolidated and how they are stored. Emotionally significant experiences tend to be better preserved and more easily accessed during moments of mind wandering. It is as if your emotions function like a fluorescent marker, highlighting the most important experiences in your personal library. You may have noticed that certain memories seem more vivid during states of relaxation. A song you heard on the radio can transport you instantly to a specific moment from childhood. A familiar aroma can evoke a cascade of associated memories. These phenomena reveal how the resting mind is more sensitive to subtle connections between different sensory modalities and different periods of life. Creativity flourishes in the fertile soil of the resting mind. Like seeds that germinate in darkness, the most innovative ideas frequently emerge not during periods of intense effort, but during moments of apparent inactivity. It is as if the constant pressure of focused attention created an arid environment for creative thought, while relaxation allowed imagination to find its own underground water. The neuroscience of creativity revealed that the most significant insights occur when there is a dynamic interaction between the default mode network and other brain networks. During mind wandering, different brain regions begin to converse with each other in unusual ways, creating connections that normally do not exist. It is as if they were musicians from different orchestras who met to improvise a jam session, discovering harmonies that had never been explored. The associative cortex, a region responsible for integrating information from different sensory and cognitive domains, becomes particularly active during these moments. It is as if you had an internal poet who is constantly creating metaphors, finding similarities between apparently disparate things, weaving connections that transcend conventional logic. You may have experienced this phenomenon during long walks, relaxing baths, or moments of contemplation. Suddenly, a solution to an old problem emerges from nowhere, so clear and obvious that you wonder why you did not see it before. Or perhaps a completely new idea arises, combining elements from different areas of your life in a way you had never considered. These experiences are not accidents. They are products of a complex process of mental incubation that happens when you allow your mind to rest. During conscious effort, your attention functions like a lens that focuses intensely on a specific area, but also creates blind spots. During relaxation, this lens widens, allowing you to see the problem from a broader perspective. Psychologist Arne Dietrich identified two main types of creativity: deliberate and spontaneous. Deliberate creativity emerges from conscious and systematic effort, while spontaneous creativity springs naturally during states of mental relaxation. Both are important, but spontaneous creativity has a special quality. It frequently produces insights that are not only new, but also elegant, surprising, and deeply satisfying. During mind wandering, there is a reduction in activity of the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, a region responsible for critical evaluation and executive control. It is as if an internal censor were temporarily dismissed, allowing apparently absurd or impossible ideas to enter consciousness. Some of these ideas are truly absurd, but others may contain germs of genuine insights. Simultaneously, there is an increase in communication between the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex, central regions of the default mode network. This intensified communication allows more fluid integration between different aspects of experience: personal memories, abstract knowledge, emotions, bodily sensations. It is as if different departments of a company began to collaborate more closely, discovering solutions that no isolated department could find. Creativity during rest is also related to the ability to make remote associations. The brain in a wandering state is more prone to connect ideas that are distant from each other in conceptual space. It is as if your mind became a courageous explorer, willing to venture into unknown territories and to trace maps between places that seem to have no connection. You can cultivate this capacity by learning to trust in the wisdom of the resting mind. Instead of forcing solutions, it may be more effective to plant the seed of a problem in your consciousness and then allow it to germinate naturally. It is like being a patient gardener who knows when to plant, when to water, and when to simply wait for nature to follow its course. The resting brain is also a territory of emotional navigation. Like an experienced sailor who reads winds and currents, your rested mind maps the internal climate of your emotions, processing affective experiences with a patience and wisdom that focused consciousness rarely can access. During mind wandering, there is an increase in activity of the anterior cingulate cortex, a region intimately involved in emotional processing and affective regulation. It is as if you had an internal therapist working constantly, helping to integrate difficult emotional experiences, to find meaning in confusing feelings, to process traumas and joys with equal care. You may have noticed that certain emotions emerge more easily during moments of relaxation. A sadness you barely perceive during the day may manifest softly while you watch the sunset. A profound gratitude may spring during a solitary walk. These moments reveal how the resting mind is more receptive to emotional nuances that frequently go unnoticed during focused activity. Emotional regulation during rest is not a process of suppression or control, but rather of integration and acceptance. It is as if your emotions were rivers that need to flow to find their natural path to the sea. During intense focus, you may build temporary dams, but during relaxation, you allow the waters to find their natural course. The limbic system, which includes structures like the amygdala, hippocampus, and cingulate cortex, works in harmony during these moments. The amygdala, frequently seen as the center of fear and anxiety, actually plays a more subtle role during rest. It helps evaluate the emotional relevance of memories and experiences, functioning as a wise counselor who whispers insights about what really matters. Neuroscience discovered that mind wandering is associated with greater capacity for mentalization. That is, the ability to understand one's own mental states and those of other people. During these moments, you not only process your own emotions, but also rehearse social interactions, imagine other people's perspectives, develop empathy and interpersonal understanding. It is as if you had an internal social simulator that is constantly running relational scenarios. You may find yourself imagining conversations with important people in your life, trying to understand their points of view, rehearsing ways to communicate better. This process is not mere fantasy, but a sophisticated form of social learning that happens behind the scenes of consciousness. The medial prefrontal cortex, particularly active during mind wandering, is specialized in theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have beliefs, desires, and intentions different from yours. During rest, this region works intensively, processing social information, refining your understanding of interpersonal dynamics, preparing you for future interactions. You can observe this process in your own experience. How many times during a moment of relaxation have you suddenly understood something about someone's behavior that had been confusing before? Or how many times have you found a more compassionate way to interpret a difficult situation? These insights reveal the sophisticated work that your mind performs in the area of human relationships. Mind wandering also offers a unique opportunity for what psychologists call cognitive reappraisal. It is a process in which you can reinterpret emotional experiences, finding more adaptive and constructive perspectives. It is like having an internal editor who is constantly revising the manuscript of your emotional life, adjusting interpretations, softening harsh judgments, finding deeper meanings in apparently negative experiences. Time unfolds in a peculiar way during mental rest, like a river that sometimes runs rapidly between stones and other times forms deep, calm pools. Temporal perception during mind wandering acquires a fluid and nonlinear quality. Past, present, and future are no longer rigid categories, but dimensions that interpenetrate and mutually inform each other. During these moments, your brain accesses what neuroscientists call the mental simulation network. It is as if you had an internal time machine that can travel freely between different periods of your life, but not just as a passive observer. You can re-experience the past, anticipate the future, and all this in the eternal present of consciousness. The capacity for mental time travel is one of the most distinctive characteristics of human cognition. During mind wandering, this ability manifests in particularly rich and sophisticated ways. You may find yourself reliving a conversation that happened years ago, but not as a simple mechanical repetition. Your mind reconstructs the experience, enriching it with understandings you did not have at the time, connecting it with subsequent events, extracting lessons that only now make sense. This reconstruction is not a distortion of reality, but a form of continuous learning. It is as if you were an archaeologist of yourself, constantly discovering new meanings in old experiences. A situation that at the time seemed trivial may reveal itself, during a moment of reflection, as a crucial turning point in your life. The medial prefrontal cortex, a central region of the default mode network, is particularly active during these temporal journeys. It functions as a sophisticated navigator that can map connections between different moments of life. identifying patterns, trends, and possibilities. It is like having a personal historian who is constantly rewriting your biography, always discovering new plots and subthemes. When your mind projects into the future during rest, it is not just fantasizing. It is performing sophisticated work of planning and preparation. You may find yourself imagining conversations that have not yet happened, rehearsing presentations, anticipating challenges. This process of pre-experience is fundamental for adaptation and future success. Mental simulation of the future during wandering has a particular quality. It tends to be more optimistic and creative than deliberate planning. It is as if, free from the pressures of immediate reality, your mind could explore broader possibilities. Imagine more inspiring scenarios, find more elegant solutions to anticipated problems. You may have noticed that some of your best decisions emerge not during moments of intense analysis, but during periods of tranquil reflection. When you allow your mind to wander freely between past and future, it can identify patterns that were not evident during conscious focus. It is like climbing a high mountain. Suddenly you can see the entire landscape, understand how different elements relate, trace routes that were not visible from ground level. Mind wandering also allows a unique form of temporal processing that psychologists call narrative integration. During these moments, your mind not only accesses different periods of life, but integrates them into a coherent story. It is as if you had an internal novelist who is constantly working on the plot of your life, identifying recurring themes, developing characters, creating narrative arcs that give meaning to your experience. This capacity for narrative creation during rest is fundamental for psychological well-being. It allows you to understand your life not as a series of random events, but as a journey with meaning and purpose. It is like having an internal poet who finds beauty and meaning even in the most mundane experiences. Intuition finds its most fertile territory in the silent landscape of the resting mind. Like an underground spring that bubbles when the surface is calm, intuitive insights emerge when you allow the waters of consciousness to quiet. It is during these moments that you can access forms of knowledge that transcend linear logic and embrace holistic wisdom. What we call intuition is actually a complex process of unconscious integration. During mind wandering, different brain regions that rarely converse directly begin to exchange information in subtle and sophisticated ways. It is as if you had an internal internet that works by Wi-Fi, connecting different departments of the mind without you consciously perceiving the communication happening. The posterior cingulate cortex, central hub of the default mode network, plays a crucial role in this process. With its extensive connections to almost all brain regions, it functions as a silent conductor who coordinates symphonies of information. During rest, it can integrate sensory data, emotional memories, abstract knowledge, and bodily experiences into syntheses that emerge as sudden insights. You may have experienced this phenomenon when waking up in the morning with the solution to a problem that had been unsolvable the previous day. During sleep, and particularly during moments of transition between sleep and waking, your mind continues working on complex problems, but free from the limitations of conscious thought. It is as if you had a nocturnal scientist who works while you sleep, leaving discoveries on the table for you to find in the morning. Intuition is also intimately linked to bodily perception during rest. The insular cortex, a region responsible for integrating bodily signals with consciousness, becomes more active during mind wandering. This allows you to access information that your body is constantly collecting about the environment, about people, about situations, but that rarely reaches the level of explicit consciousness. When you feel that something is not right in a situation, even without being able to explain exactly what, you are accessing this form of bodily knowledge. It is as if you had millions of subtle sensors that are constantly monitoring aspects of reality that escape conscious perception. During rest, these signals can integrate into intuitive impressions that guide your decisions and actions. Neuroscience discovered that people with lesions in the orbitofrontal cortex, a region involved in intuitive decision-making, can maintain all their logical capacities intact, but lose the ability to make good choices in complex situations. It is as if they lost access to an emotional GPS that normally guides them through the ambiguous territory of real life. During mind wandering, this emotional GPS calibrates and refines itself. You may find yourself reevaluating relationships, reconsidering decisions, adjusting your values and priorities. This process is not conscious and deliberate, but emerges naturally when you allow your mind to rest. It is as if you had an internal counselor who only speaks when there is enough silence to hear him. Intuition during rest is also related to what psychologists call higher-order processing. While conscious thought operates mainly in sequential and logical ways, intuitive processing can integrate multiple variables simultaneously, considering aspects that would be impossible to analyze consciously. It is like the difference between reading a musical score note by note and hearing a complete symphony. You can cultivate this capacity by learning to trust the insights that emerge during moments of quietude. In a culture that values mainly rational and explicit thinking, it can be difficult to accept that some of the best decisions come from processes we cannot completely explain. But learning to honor the wisdom of intuition is like learning to navigate not only by map, but also by the stars. The resting brain is a universe of invisible waves, frequencies that dance in rhythms that ordinary consciousness rarely perceives. Like an oceanographer who discovers deep currents that influence the entire marine climate, neuroscientists discovered that these brainwaves during rest have a profound impact on how we think, feel, and experience reality. During mind wandering, there is a significant increase in alpha wave activity, frequencies that oscillate between 8 and 12 Hz. These waves are like a slow, deep breath of the brain, creating a state of alert relaxation that is ideal for creativity and introspection. It is as if your mind found its natural frequency, free from the interference of focused activity. You may have noticed that certain ideas come more easily when you are in states of gentle relaxation during a walk in nature, a warm bath, or while listening to tranquil music. These moments frequently coincide with an increase in alpha waves, creating a neurological environment conducive to insights and inspirations. Theta waves, which oscillate between 4 and 8 Hz, also become more prominent during certain types of mind wandering. These frequencies are associated with states of deep creativity, access to remote memories, and experiences of sudden insight. It is as if these waves functioned as keys that open doors to normally inaccessible aspects of consciousness. The synchronization between different brain regions during rest is particularly fascinating. Like musicians in an orchestra who find a common rhythm, different areas of the brain begin to oscillate in harmony during mind wandering. This synchronization allows more efficient communication between regions that would normally operate independently. The hippocampus, guardian of memories, shows particularly interesting wave patterns during rest. Sharp wave ripples, which occur during periods of inactivity, are crucial for memory consolidation. It is as if the hippocampus took advantage of quiet moments to transfer important files to long-term storage. You can indirectly observe this process when you notice that certain memories from the day become clearer after a period of rest. It is as if your mind needed time to process and organize experiences, transforming raw impressions into refined and accessible memories. Communication between the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus during rest is mediated by theta waves, creating a sophisticated dialogue between future planning and past memory. It is as if these two regions met regularly for executive conferences, discussing strategies, reviewing experiences, preparing for future challenges. Gamma waves, the fastest in the brain spectrum, also play an important role during some moments of mind wandering. These waves, which oscillate above 30 Hz, are associated with moments of sudden insight when different elements connect suddenly and clearly. It is as if they were flashes of illumination that light up previously obscure mental landscapes. During meditative or deep contemplative states, which are specific forms of mental rest, there is frequently a unique combination of alpha and theta waves that creates an altered state of consciousness. In this state, you can access perspectives that transcend ordinary thinking, experience sensations of universal connection, or have profound insights about the nature of reality. Science is beginning to understand that these brain oscillations during rest are not just byproducts of neural activity, but rather functional mechanisms that allow specific types of information processing. It is like discovering that what seemed to be just background noise is actually a sophisticated language that different parts of the brain use to communicate with each other, Attention during rest does not disappear, it transforms, like a spotlight that becomes diffuse light. The focused attention of the day dissolves into a broader and more receptive consciousness. It is as if you left a dark theater where a single scene was illuminated and entered a garden under the soft light of the moon, where everything becomes visible in a different way. During mind wandering, your attention operates in a mode that neuroscientists call diffuse monitoring. Instead of concentrating intensely on a specific object, it spreads like water over a broad surface, capturing subtle signals from multiple sources simultaneously. It is like the difference between using a microscope, which reveals minute details of a small area, and using a telescope, which offers a panoramic view of the cosmos. You may have experienced this state during long car trips. When your conscious attention is dedicated to driving, but a part of your mind wanders freely, suddenly you notice details of the landscape that would normally go unnoticed, the particular shape of a cloud, the pattern of light filtering through trees, the hypnotic rhythm of rain on the windshield. It is as if you had developed a form of mental peripheral vision. The executive attention network, dominant during conscious focus, diminishes its activity during mind wandering. It is as if a rigorous director left the scene, allowing actors to improvise freely. This reduction in attentional control is not a failure or weakness, but rather an adaptive characteristic that allows different types of mental processing. During these moments, the salience network, responsible for detecting relevant stimuli in the environment, assumes a more prominent role. It is as if you had an internal radar system that is constantly scanning the mental horizon, identifying signals that may be important even when you are not consciously looking for them. The anterior insula, central region of the salience network, becomes particularly active during mind wandering. It functions as a switch that can quickly direct attention to significant stimuli. It is like having a vigilant guardian who allows you to relax, but who is always ready to alert you if something important happens. You may have noticed this phenomenon when you are absorbed in daydreams, but suddenly become aware of an interesting conversation happening near you, or when you notice that someone called your name in a noisy room. Your diffuse attention was monitoring the environment, allowing relevant information to emerge when necessary. Mind wandering also allows a form of attention that is simultaneously internal and external. You can be processing internal memories and fantasies, but also remain receptive to external stimuli. It is like being in two conversations at the same time, one with yourself and another with the world around you. During meditative or contemplative states, this quality of attention becomes even more refined. You can develop the capacity to maintain a broad and receptive consciousness that encompasses both the internal and external world. It is as if you became a mirror that faithfully reflects everything that passes before it, without clinging to any specific image. Neuroscience discovered that people who practice meditation regularly show changes in the structure and function of attentional networks. There is a strengthening of the capacity to maintain states of diffuse and receptive attention, as well as greater flexibility to alternate between different attentional modes. It is like developing mental muscles that allow different types of perception and consciousness. This attentional flexibility during rest is fundamental for creativity and problem solving. It allows you to maintain a question or challenge in the background of consciousness, while your mind freely explores different conceptual territories. It is like planting a seed of curiosity and then allowing it to grow naturally in the fertile soil of the resting mind. The resting brain is an ecosystem of silent communication, where different regions converse in languages that transcend words. Like a forest where trees communicate through networks of roots and volatile chemicals, brain areas exchange information through connections that are simultaneously intimate and vast, local and global. During mind wandering, there is a significant increase in communication between brain regions that normally do not collaborate intensively. It is as if they were ambassadors from different countries who finally had time for long and profound diplomatic conversations. These inter-regional conversations can generate insights that no brain area could produce in isolation. The posterior cingulate cortex, with its extensive connections to almost the entire brain, functions as a central hub in this communication network. It is like a large train station where different lines meet, allowing passengers information to travel between destinations that normally would not have direct connection. During rest, this station becomes particularly busy. You can observe the products of this interregional communication when sudden insights emerge during moments of relaxation, a connection between a childhood experience and a current work project, for example, can arise because regions responsible for autobiographical memory finally manage to talk with areas involved in future planning. Communication during rest is also facilitated by changes in neurotransmitters. Dopamine, frequently associated with pleasure and motivation, plays a crucial role in modulating the activity of the default mode network. It is as if it functioned as a chemical messenger that facilitates conversations between different brain regions. During mind wandering, there is also a reduction in activity of the noradrenergic system, responsible for maintaining the state of alertness. It is as if the watchtowers of the mind lowered their guard, allowing a type of more intimate and less censored communication between different aspects of mental experience. Serotonin, a neurotransmitter associated with well-being and emotional regulation, also influences the quality of communication during rest. Adequate levels of serotonin facilitate more fluid and creative mind wandering, while imbalances can lead to ruminative or anxious thought patterns. It is like the difference between a fluid conversation between friends and a tense discussion between strangers. The cholinergic system, which modulates attention and consciousness, also undergoes alterations during rest. The reduction in cholinergic activity allows the mind to move away from specific details of the immediate environment and open to broader patterns and freer associations. It is like switching from a macro lens to a wide-angle lens. During states of deep relaxation, such as those achieved through meditation, there are even more pronounced changes in interregional communication. Brain areas that normally operate relatively independently begin to synchronize their activities, creating states of consciousness that transcend ordinary experience. It is as if different instruments of an orchestra found a harmony that was not in the original score. Communication during rest also involves subcortical structures that rarely participate in conscious cognition. The thalamus, for example, can facilitate connections between distant cortical regions, functioning as a telephone operator who connects calls between different departments of the mind. The cerebellum, traditionally associated with motor control, also contributes to cognition during rest, adding its capacity for processing complex patterns. You can cultivate this interregional communication by learning to value and protect moments of mental quietude. In a constantly connected world, where attention is frequently fragmented among multiple demands, creating spaces for mind wandering becomes an act of personal care and creativity cultivation. Memory during mental rest reveals its truly dynamic nature. Far from being a static archive where information is merely stored, it behaves like a living ecosystem where remembrances interact, transform themselves, and generate new meanings. It is like a library where books continuously rewrite themselves, always adapting to the needs and understandings of the present moment. During mind wandering, the hippocampus intensifies its activity, not only consolidating recent memories, but also establishing connections with older experiences. It is as if it were a skilled weaver who is constantly creating new patterns in the fabric of personal experience, finding common threads between apparently unrelated events. You may have experienced this process when a familiar song suddenly evokes a cascade of memories, not only of the moment when you first heard it, but of all the contexts where it was present. These are not random associations, but meaningful connections that your mind created during moments of silent processing. Memory reconsolidation, the process by which old memories are updated each time they are accessed, is particularly active during rest. It is as if your memories were works of art that you continue retouching throughout life, always adding new details based on subsequent experiences and more mature understandings. During mind wandering, there is also an active process of selective forgetting. It is not accidental erasure, but careful curation that preserves relevant information and allows irrelevant details to fade. It is like an experienced editor who removes unnecessary passages from a manuscript, maintaining only what contributes to the main narrative. The medial prefrontal cortex, central region of the default mode network, works in partnership with the hippocampus to create coherent narratives from fragmented experiences. It is as if you had an internal biographer who is constantly reviewing and refining the story of your life, finding recurring themes, identifying turning points, creating continuity where there were previously only isolated events. Emotional memory receives special attention during rest. The amygdala, center of emotional processing, collaborates with the hippocampus to ensure that emotionally significant experiences are not only preserved, but constructively integrated into the personal narrative. It is as if your emotions functioned like fluorescent ink, highlighting the most important experiences for later processing. During states of deep relaxation, you can access memories that normally remain inaccessible to ordinary consciousness. These are not repressed memories in the dramatic sense, but rather subtle experiences that were registered but not completely processed. It is like discovering forgotten photographs in an old album, images that suddenly acquire new meaning in the current context. Memory during rest also integrates with future planning in sophisticated ways. Past experiences are not only remembered, but used as material to build future scenarios. It is as if you had a mental architect who uses building blocks from the past to design structures of the future. You can observe this process when you find yourself learning from previous experiences in an intuitive way. A current situation may evoke not only the memory of a similar situation, but also the wisdom extracted from that experience. It is as if your mind had distilled essential lessons from past experiences and kept them available for future application. Social memory is also refined during rest. You may find yourself reprocessing social interactions, better understanding other people's motivations, developing empathy based on shared experiences. It is as if you had an internal relational therapist who is constantly working to improve your understanding of human dynamics. The resting brain is a simulation laboratory where possible futures are constantly tested and refined. Like a careful strategist who uses times of peace to study maps and plan campaigns, your rested mind explores future scenarios, rehearses conversations that have not yet happened, and prepares responses to challenges that may never come. During mind wandering, there is a significant increase in activity of the medial prefrontal cortex, a region specialized in simulating future situations. It is as if you had a mental movie studio where different versions of your future life are constantly filmed, edited, and refined. Some of these films are realistic, others are fantastic, but all contribute to your psychological preparation for the future. You may have noticed this process during long trips or moments of contemplation, when your mind naturally turns to the future. It may be a mental rehearsal of an important presentation, an imaginary conversation with someone you need to confront, or simply daydreams about how your life could be in different circumstances. These mental simulations are not mere fantasies. They serve important adaptive functions, allowing you to anticipate problems, identify opportunities, and develop strategies. It is like having a personal flight simulator that allows you to practice complex maneuvers in a safe environment before facing real turbulence. The capacity to simulate possible futures is intimately linked to memory. Your brain uses past experiences as building material for future scenarios, combining known elements in new and creative ways. It is like being an architect who uses bricks from old constructions to design completely new buildings. During mind wandering, there is also a process of emotional pre-experience happening. You can experience in advance the emotions associated with future events, psychologically preparing yourself for different possibilities. It is as if you had an emotional dress rehearsal that prepares you for life's true performances. The posterior cingulate cortex, with its extensive connections to memory, emotion, and planning, functions as a mental film director during these simulations. It coordinates different aspects of simulated experience, ensuring that future scenarios are both realistic and emotionally relevant. It is like having a director who understands not only cinematographic technique, but also human psychology. You can observe the sophistication of this process when you notice that your worries about the future frequently include not only specific events, but also your possible emotional reactions to those events. This demonstrates that your mind is not only simulating external situations, but also modeling your own internal responses. Mental simulation during rest also involves complex social aspects. You may find yourself imagining how other people will react to your actions, rehearsing communication strategies, anticipating conflicts or celebrations. It is like having a social psychology laboratory where you can test different relational approaches. During states of deep relaxation, future simulations can acquire a particularly creative and expansive quality. Free from the limitations of immediate reality, your mind can explore possibilities that transcend current circumstances. It is as if you had access to a parallel universe where the laws of physics are more flexible and dreams can become reality. These creative simulations are not just escapism. They can reveal deep desires, identify fundamental values, and inspire real changes in life. It is as if your mind used fantasy as a tool for psychological exploration, testing different versions of yourself in different realities. The capacity to simulate futures during rest is also a source of hope and motivation. When you imagine positive scenarios, you are not just daydreaming, but creating mental maps that can guide your future actions. It is like planting seeds of possibility that can, with care and intention, grow into concrete realities. Consciousness, during rest, reveals layers of depth that are rarely accessible during focused activity. Like a lake that shows only reflections on its surface when there is wind, but reveals its depths when water's quiet, the resting mind allows access to more subtle and profound aspects of human experience. During mind wandering, there is a qualitative change in the nature of consciousness. It becomes less directed, less categorical, more fluid. It is as if you left a room with artificial lighting and entered a space lit by natural light. Everything acquires a different quality, more organic and nuanced. The posterior cingulate cortex, central region of the default mode network, is particularly important for what neuroscientists call autobiographical consciousness. During rest, this region integrates information about the self in different temporal contexts, creating a coherent narrative of personal identity. It is like having an internal historian who is constantly working on your biography, ensuring that it maintains continuity and coherence. You may have experienced moments during mind wandering when your consciousness seems to expand, encompassing not only your immediate thoughts and feelings but also a broader sense of connection with the world. These are not rare mystical states, but rather natural manifestations of consciousness's capacity to operate at different scales and modalities. During states of deep relaxation, such as those achieved through meditation or contemplation, consciousness can experience what researchers call dissolution of self. It is not a loss of identity, but rather an expansion of consciousness beyond the habitually perceived boundaries of the ego. It is as if you were a drop of water that suddenly remembered it was part of the ocean. The insula, a region responsible for bodily consciousness, also plays an important role during rest. It integrates bodily signals with conscious experience, creating a form of consciousness that is simultaneously mental and physical. During mind wandering, you can become more conscious of subtle bodily sensations that normally go unnoticed. Consciousness during rest is also characterized by greater receptivity to aesthetic aspects of experience. You may find yourself noticing the subtle beauty of changing light during the day, the elegance of a cloud pattern, or the inherent poetry in everyday conversations. It is as if the resting mind had access to an aesthetic channel that is frequently overshadowed by the practical demands of daily life. The superior temporal cortex, a region involved in complex auditory processing, can become more active during mind wandering, allowing more refined appreciation of musical elements in the environment, from the rhythm of rain to the urban symphony of traffic. It is as if you developed musicians' ears, capable of finding harmony even in apparent chaos. During these states, there is also greater integration between cognitive and emotional processing. The rigid boundaries between thought and feeling become more permeable, allowing forms of understanding that transcend the reason-emotion dichotomy. It is as if you had access to a form of intelligence that is simultaneously intellectual and visceral. Metacognition, or consciousness about one's own consciousness, also becomes more refined during rest. You may find yourself observing your own thoughts and emotions with contemplative distance, like a naturalist who studies the behavioral patterns of a fascinating species. This capacity for self-observation without judgment is fundamental for personal growth and wisdom. Consciousness during mind wandering also allows access to what some philosophers call knowledge by presence, a form of knowing that does not depend on analysis or categorization, but emerges from attentive presence to experience as it is. It is like the difference between reading about the ocean and actually being at the beach. feeling the salt breeze and hearing the eternal rhythm of waves. The resting brain is a master of energy economics, but not in the way you might imagine. Instead of simply turning off systems to save fuel, it redistributes energy in sophisticated ways, like a skilled resource manager who optimizes operations for maximum efficiency and creativity. During mind wandering, although certain regions diminish their activity, others intensify their work. It is like a city that, during the night, reduces lighting of commercial streets but intensifies activity in research and development centers. Energy is not simply saved, but redirected to processes equally important but less visible. The brain consumes approximately 20% of all the energy your body produces, even during rest. This may seem like an evolutionary waste, but it actually reflects the fundamental importance of processes that happen during these moments. It is like keeping a factory running 24 hours, not to produce more of the same product, but to develop innovations that will transform all future production. During mind wandering, there is an increase in blood flow to regions of the default mode network, ensuring they have the necessary resources for their sophisticated work. It is as if the cardiovascular system recognized the importance of these processes and prioritized their nutrition. The heart, without you noticing, adjusts its rhythms to support the silent dance of the resting mind. Glucose, the brain's main fuel, is consumed particularly intensely by the posterior cingulate cortex during mind wandering. This region, central hub of the default mode network, requires substantial energy to coordinate communication between different brain areas. It is like a large airport terminal that needs constant energy to keep all flights departing and arriving on schedule. During rest, there are also changes in neurotransmitter metabolism. Dopamine production may increase in certain regions, facilitating communication between areas involved in creativity and planning. It is as if the mind had an express delivery system that works better during periods of low conscious traffic. The glymphatic system, the brain's cleaning network that removes toxins and metabolic products, becomes particularly active during states of rest and sleep. It is as if your mind had a night cleaning crew that works while you are not consciously using the space. This process is fundamental for maintaining long-term cognitive health. You can observe the effects of this energy optimization when you notice how you feel after periods of genuine mental rest. It is not just an absence of fatigue, but a quality of clarity and vitality that suggests important restorative processes have happened. It is like the difference between simply stopping work and truly rejuvenating. Breathing and heart rate also synchronize in interesting ways during mind wandering. There is a tendency towards slower and deeper breaths, which optimize brain oxygenation. It is as if your body intuitively knew how to support the mental processes that are happening, creating ideal physiological conditions for creativity and introspection. Body temperature may decrease slightly during states of deep mental rest, reflecting a redistribution of energy from peripheral systems to the central nervous system. It is as if your body were an intelligent heating system that concentrates energy where it is most needed at the moment. During mind wandering, there are also subtle changes in blood pressure and heart rate variability, indicators that the autonomic nervous system is optimizing internal conditions for specific cognitive processes. It is as if you had an invisible physiological assistant who constantly adjusts internal conditions to support whatever mental work is underway. Mental rest is a territory of healing that transcends the simple absence of activity. Like a garden that regenerates during winter, preparing for the explosion of life in spring, the resting mind performs restorative processes that are fundamental for psychological well-being and emotional resilience. During mind wandering, there is a reduction in activity of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the system responsible for stress response. It is as if the body finally had permission to lower its defenses, allowing repair and regeneration systems to take control. Cortisol, the stress hormone, gradually diminishes, creating an internal environment more conducive to healing and growth. You may have experienced this restorative quality during moments of contemplation in nature, when a sense of deep peace seems to emanate not only from the beauty of the environment, but from some internal process of harmonization. It is as if different aspects of your being, physical, emotional, mental, found a common rhythm, a resonance frequency that promotes integration and healing. The immune system also benefits from genuine mental rest. During states of deep relaxation, there is an increase in production of NK, natural killer, cells, important for defense against infections and abnormal cells. It is as if the mind at peace communicated to the body that it is safe to invest energy in maintenance and repair, instead of constantly maintaining a state of alert. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to form new connections and modify existing circuits, is optimized during periods of mental rest. It is as if the mind needed moments of quietude to install updates in its operating systems, integrating new learnings and refining neural connections. During mind wandering, there is also a process of emotional regulation that happens naturally, without conscious effort. Difficult emotional experiences can be reprocessed, recontextualized, and integrated more constructively into the personal narrative. It is like having an internal therapist who works behind the scenes, helping to transform wounds into wisdom. The medial prefrontal cortex, central region of the default mode network, plays a crucial role in this process of emotional healing. It helps regulate amygdala activity, the center of fear processing, creating a form of calming that emerges naturally during states of rest. It is like having internal parents who offer comfort and perspective during difficult moments. You can observe this healing process when you notice that certain worries that seemed overwhelming during periods of stress become more manageable after moments of mental rest. It is not that problems disappear, but your relationship with them transforms. It is as if you gained a broader perspective that allows you to see challenges as part of a larger landscape, instead of insurmountable mountains. Mind wandering also facilitates a process that psychologists call post-traumatic growth. During states of rest, difficult experiences can be re-examined and reintegrated in ways that promote resilience and wisdom. It is as if the mind had an innate capacity to transform lead into gold, converting suffering into understanding. The quality of healing during mental rest is different from the recovery that happens during sleep. It is more conscious, more participatory. You can become vaguely aware of integration and harmonization processes happening, like someone who perceives regeneration work in a garden without interfering with the natural process. During meditative or contemplative states, this healing quality can become even more pronounced. There are consistent reports of people who experience a sensation of being healed during contemplative practices, not necessarily from specific illnesses, but from internal fragmentations, chronic anxieties, or sensations of disconnection. It is as if resting consciousness had access to an internal pharmacy of well-being. Wisdom emerges silently in the laboratory of the resting mind. Like wine that matures in dark barrels, gaining complexity and depth through processes that cannot be rushed. The most profound insights about life frequently develop during moments of contemplative quietude. During mind wandering, there is a special form of processing that transcends simple logical analysis or factual recall. It is an integrative process that combines lived experience, acquired knowledge, emotional intuition, and bodily wisdom into syntheses that can completely transform your understanding of complex situations. It is as if different knowledge libraries in your mind finally had time to converse with each other. The medial prefrontal cortex, central region of the default mode network, is particularly active in this process of wisdom generation. It integrates information from multiple sources, personal memories, social knowledge, moral values, emotional experiences, creating understandings that are simultaneously personal and universal. It is like having an internal philosopher who distills essential lessons from lived experience. You may have experienced moments during mind wandering when a complex situation suddenly became clear, not through deliberate analysis, but through an intuitive understanding that emerged naturally. Perhaps a difficult relationship became comprehensible, or an important decision became obvious. These moments reveal the sophisticated work that your mind performs when it has space to process information holistically. The wisdom that emerges during mental rest has distinct qualities. It tends to be compassionate, recognizing the complexity and ambiguities inherent in the human condition. It is practical, offering guidance that can be applied in real situations. And it is integrative, bringing together apparently contradictory aspects of experience into coherent syntheses. During states of deep contemplation, you can access perspectives that transcend your immediate personal experience. It is as if the resting mind had access to a universal library of human wisdom, allowing insights that resonate not only with your specific situation, but with broader patterns of human experience. Wisdom processing during rest also involves a special form of intellectual humility. The wandering mind is more prone to recognize limitations, to embrace uncertainties, to find value in multiple perspectives. It is as if mental quietude created space for a form of knowledge that is less dogmatic and more flexible. The integration between reason and emotion during rest is fundamental for wisdom development. Purely intellectual insights may lack emotional relevance, while purely emotional impulses may lack rational clarity. During mind wandering, these two forms of knowledge can integrate in ways that produce understandings that are simultaneously true and useful. You can observe this process when you notice that your reflections during moments of quietude frequently lead not only to understandings about specific situations, but to more general principles that can guide future decisions. It is as if your mind were constantly distilling essences of wisdom that can be applied in multiple contexts. The wisdom that emerges during mental rest also has a unique temporal quality. It can integrate lessons from the past with anticipations of the future, creating guidance that is relevant for the present moment. It is like having access to a perspective that transcends the limitations of linear time, allowing decisions that honor past experience while opening to future possibilities. During meditative or contemplative states, this capacity for wisdom generation can become even more refined. There is a quality of deep listening that can reveal aspects of the situation that were not apparent during conscious analysis. It is like developing a special type of hearing that can detect subtle frequencies of reality that normally go unnoticed. Connection is the golden thread that weaves through all experience of the resting mind. Like tree roots that meet in the forest subsoil, creating an invisible network of communication and mutual support, mind wandering reveals and strengthens connections that transcend the apparent boundaries of the individual self. During mental rest, there is an increase in activity of brain regions associated with empathy and social understanding. The medial prefrontal cortex, central area of the default mode network, is particularly involved in the capacity to understand and simulate other people's mental states. It is as if the quiet mind naturally turned toward others, recognizing the fundamentally social nature of human experience. You may have noticed that some of your moments of greatest compassion and understanding emerged during periods of tranquil reflection. Perhaps you found yourself better understanding the motivations of someone who had hurt you, or feeling a deep connection with people facing challenges similar to yours. These moments reveal how the resting mind naturally cultivates connection and empathy. Mind wandering also allows a special form of processing relational experiences. During these moments, you can re-examine past interactions, understand family dynamics, develop strategies for more effective communication. It is like having a relational laboratory where you can experiment with different ways of connecting with others. The phenomenon of mentalization, the capacity to understand that other people have beliefs, desires, and intentions different from yours, is refined during mental rest. It is like developing a form of social X-ray vision that allows you to see through superficial actions to the deeper motivations and needs that drive them. During states of deep contemplation, you can experience moments of connection that transcend the habitual boundaries of self. It may be a sensation of unity with nature during a solitary walk, or a profound recognition of shared humanity during the observation of people in a public space. It is as if resting consciousness had access to a frequency of connection that is normally obscured by the noise of constant mental activity. Neuroscience discovered that people who practice meditation regularly show increases in gray matter density in regions associated with empathy and compassion. It is as if regular cultivation of mental rest literally remodeled the brain in ways that promote connection and interpersonal understanding. The resting mind also facilitates a special form of temporal connection with oneself. During mind wandering, you can connect with previous versions of yourself, better understanding your journeys and transformations. Simultaneously, you can develop connection and compassion for future versions of yourself, making decisions that honor both who you were and who you are becoming. You can observe this process when you notice that moments of quietude frequently lead to insights about important relationships in your life. Perhaps you better understand family dynamics, or find ways to forgive old hurts, or discover manners to express love and appreciation more effectively. Connection during mental rest also extends to the natural world. There is something about mental quietude that increases sensitivity to natural rhythms, to seasonal changes, to pulsating life in all its forms. It is as if the calm mind recognized its participation in the great web of life, developing a form of ecological consciousness that emerges naturally from contemplation. During states of deep wandering, you can experience moments of connection with something greater than the individual self, whether called nature, universe, divine, or simply the mystery of existence. These are not necessarily religious experiences in the conventional sense, but recognitions of participation in something vast and significant. It is as if resting consciousness had access to perspectives that reveal the fundamental interdependence of all life. As we reach the end of this journey through the silent territories of the resting mind, a luminous truth emerges. What you call doing nothing is, in reality, doing everything that matters. Your resting brain is not a machine turned off, but rather an ecosystem in bloom, an expanding universe, a symphony playing its most subtle and profound melodies. During all those moments when you believed you were simply resting, watching clouds move across the sky, walking without specific destination, letting your mind wander during a warm bath, your brain was performing the most sophisticated work of which it is capable. It was weaving connections between disparate experiences, healing emotional wounds, generating creative insights, planning possible futures, consolidating wisdom, strengthening empathetic bonds. The default mode network, the silent orchestra that we discovered throughout this exploration, reveals itself as one of the most important discoveries of modern neuroscience. It teaches us that the human mind possesses its own rhythms, intrinsic needs for space and time for processes that cannot be rushed or forced. It is like discovering that our house has secret rooms where the true magic of life happens. You can now understand why some of humanity's greatest insights emerged during moments of apparent inactivity. Archimedes in his bathtub, Newton under the apple tree, Einstein in his reveries. All of them accessed the wisdom that flourishes when the mind finds its natural rhythm, its own breathing, its silent dance with the internal cosmos. What makes this understanding even more precious is that it offers a form of gentle resistance to the culture of constant productivity that often defines our time. When you understand that mental rest is a state of sophisticated activity, you can defend these moments not as luxury or laziness, but as fundamental necessity for human flourishing. During mind wandering, you access forms of intelligence that complement and enrich focused thought. It is like having two equally valuable musical instruments, one for precise and defined melodies, another for broad and enveloping harmonies. The richest life emerges when you can play both with mastery. Memory reveals itself not as a static archive, but as a living garden where experiences grow and transform. Creativity emerges not from pressure, but from permission for the mind to explore unexplored territories. Wisdom distills not through forced analysis, but through contemplative patience that allows insights to mature in their own time. Connection, with yourself, with others, with life in all its manifestations, flourishes when you create spaces of quietude where empathy can develop naturally. It is like discovering that you always had the capacity to read the heart, but needed silence to hear its subtle language. Perhaps the deepest lesson of this journey is that you do not need to do anything special to access these treasures of the resting mind. They are already happening, like breathing or blood circulation, natural processes that require only that you not impede them. It is like discovering that you were always rich, but were looking for wealth in places where it could not be found. In a world that frequently confuses movement with progress, noise with importance, occupation with value, the resting mind offers ancient wisdom dressed in modern scientific clothing, that some of life's most precious gifts arrive not when you pursue them, but when you create space for them to find you. So, the next time you allow yourself a moment of wandering, watching light filter through leaves, listening to rain on the roof, Simply being present without agenda? Remember that you are participating in one of the most fundamental and beautiful processes of human experience. Your mind is dancing its most ancient dance, singing its deepest songs, painting its truest pictures, and in that recognition, in that honor to the natural rhythm of consciousness, you find not only rest, but renewal. Not only pause, but preparation. Not only quietude, but the eternal promise that within each moment of rest lives the seed of all future possibility. With gratitude for this shared journey through the silent gardens of the mind, I bid farewell, confident that you will carry with you the understanding that to rest is a form of honoring the infinite wisdom that resides within you.